Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of AoS Close-Ups. This week we're going to talk about my favorite unit, that's right, Dragon Ogres. We're going to talk about their fluff, their rules, and how to use them best on the tabletop. Dragon Ogres, also known as Shartaks, are monstrous beings that rouse only in the name of destruction during the most powerful of thunderstorms. The louder the thunder, the more Dragon Ogres come awake. But only storms of immense power can stir the oldest and most powerful of these beasts. Otherwise, Dragon Ogres spend the majority of their long lives slumbering deep within hidden mountain caves. In the old world, Dragon Ogres were amongst the world's oldest ancient living creatures, having been around even before the old ones. In fact, they are so ancient, Dragon Ogres were already facing extinction long before humans had even learned how to make fire. Desperate, they made a pact with the Chaos Gods. In exchange for immortality, Dragon Ogres would be eternally damned into servitude. Therefore, as long as they bathed in lightning, their lives would extend forever, and they would only die in battle. During great storms, the beasts will compete with their brethren to ascend the highest peaks, so to receive this invigorating power. For as long as they continue to bathe in lightning, Dragon Ogres will grow in size and power throughout their lives. There is truly no real limit to how massive one can become, and some have reached such power that they are living mountains of destruction. Looking over the Dragon Ogre rules, we'll see that they come with several different weapon options, which will of course change their role on the tabletop. But something they do share in common is a base to attacks that hit and wound on a 4-up and do 1 damage. Now these attacks aren't spectacular, but the more dice you're rolling, the more dice your opponent's rolling, and the more likely you're going to be inflicting some valuable casualties. Moving on to the more specific weapon options, we'll first look at Ancient Weapons. This is your typical 2 one-handed weapon attack option that allows you to reroll 1s. Out of all the weapons, this will guarantee you the most successful hits, but at the sacrifice of making each attack less potent. Next, we can equip our Dragon Ogres with Warglaives. This will give your Dragon Ogres a rend characteristic and a 2-inch threat range, but since they're no longer rerolling hits and you're giving yourself a 2-inch threat range, it's drastically going to change their role on the tabletop, and we'll go more into that in the next section. Finally, you can give your Dragon Ogres the War Crusher, which will give them 1 less attack, but each successful wound will do 2 damage. Rounding out our overview of the rules, we come to probably the most interesting aspect of the Dragon Ogres, and that's when you bring them in your army, they grant your wizards a spell. That spell being Summon Lightning. Now this is a very specific augment spell that only helps out the Dragon Ogres, but it's pretty impressive in itself. Not only does it heal your Dragon Ogres for D3 wounds, but more importantly, it allows your Dragon Ogres to reroll all failed wounds, and this just brings your Dragon Ogres from being good to that next level. The thing I will encourage, however, and might be a downside, is you'll want to bring a wizard who will caddy along with the Dragon Ogres, as any wizard that you're going to be using in your army is probably going to be preoccupied with getting that spell off, meaning that any other spell he has or roll he has will be wasted as he travels along with the Dragon Ogres to make sure they're operating at peak efficiency. As mentioned before, the weapon loadouts of your units will dictate the role on the tabletop. Dragon Ogres with ancient weapons, while the most efficient in getting hits in, are the least role-oriented of the 3. While this does allow them the most autonomy on the board, even with granting rerolls to wound, you will see them having the least amount of direction and may lead you into some pretty bad matchups. Moving up the flanks of the board against lightly armored units you can strike against first is probably the only good rule of thumb. Next, Warglaive Dragon Ogres are definitely the team players of the 3. Having them lead an attack into a unit will result in certain failure, but having them just behind a smaller base unit that has been engaged by the enemy will allow their 2-inch threat range to come into full support, and is the best use for these guys. This will keep them at arm's length from many threats and add some quality punch to a combat with reduced risk. This also puts them in the role of a great defensive support unit for a board choke point. Finally, War Crusher armed units are just your wrecking ball and are very efficient against monsters, quickly knocking them down their damage tables. If you do bring them against units of infantry, just make sure your unit is bigger than just 3, because despite their increased damage output, they can be quickly overwhelmed. Finally, remember, Dragon Ogres aren't going to be the best thing to hit the tabletop, but if you like them like I do, they are definitely workable and can have some pretty efficient uses on the table. And that will conclude this episode of AoS Close-Ups. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe. Feel free to comment below, and thank you for watching.